businesses that are here that weren't here before. If these incentive programs work, they help, and they're successful. I had a whole section of my program I deleted because I was way too long. I can go on and on and on. Some of you might remember what the north side of Ottawa looked like 10 years ago. Vacant building that used to be Ramada Inn, vacant Value City, abandoned Ponderosa, vacant Walmart, vacant Kmart. It looked terrible, it was dead. And it sat there. We finally talked the city council into creating a commercial TIF district. In 3 years, RP Lumber, Ford, we have the Fairfield Inn, and Culver's, and Thornton's, and you start rattling them off. O'Reilly's Auto Parts, we got Auto Warehouse Park. It just, the incentives make the difference. They make it so that people can afford to do what they need to do, and the city of Ottawa wants to be proactive and find every way we can to make it so your business can thrive. So that's what we're all about. That's what I'll talk about. Hopefully I can figure out the tech. He said appointment after the thing. Look at that. So we're all about coming up with motivation for you. And it's all about the costs you have to renovate, the costs you have to construct. And those are the things that stop you up front. You might be able to say, well, if my business was established, I could make money, but my first couple of years, I'm gonna go upside down. What do I do? And hopefully we can find some things to help a little bit. And so let's talk about some of those. The first one I'll talk about is the enterprise zone. Who knows about enterprise zones? Raise your hand. Ooh, enterprise zone's kind of quiet. The state of Illinois competes with states all over the country to try to land projects. They really compete hard to get industrial projects here. And we compete, and we have to, because if we don't, they'll go to a state that does compete. And so the Illinois Enterprise Zone system is the state of Illinois way to try to compete with others. And what they do is they've created about 100, give or take, of these zones throughout the state. It's a very competitive thing to get a zone in your area, and we competed against over 100 others when our round was up to try to get one, and we were successful, made a good case. An enterprise zone has a very specific footprint. It's got a map. I'll show you the map in a second. There's also, right over there leaning against the wall, that's our map. And if you were to look at our map real close, you discover that we drew the highlighted areas where we think industry and commercial might go. We didn't put the enterprise zone where there's houses in residential districts. We put it where and that's been our goal. Our goal has been to do things to attract retail, commercial, industrial. So here's just a list of some of the basic things. To take advantage of the enterprise zone, you have to be on the map. You have to be inside the highlighted area. Second, there's some basic things that you can take advantage of. The most important one is if you're building something new or you're renovating, you can waive having to pay the sales tax on your building materials. And so if you're used to paying like 7% tax on everything you buy to put your building up, it's a very simple process. Now, the first time you do it, it won't be simple because you know how forms are, they're confusing. But it's a straightforward process that I walk you through, and you can have all your building materials sales tax free. And so if you have a $100,000 building and $50,000 for materials, you can save 7% added on to that 50,000, 3,500 bucks saved off the top. You also get a 0.5% income tax credit when you do your taxes for investing in the enterprise zone. Oh, and by the way, all of this is in your pamphlet. You'll find on the left-hand side more detail than I'm going to talk about. You're going to find something that has all the stuff I'm saying in more detail, and so when I screw up, you can say, hey Dave, it doesn't say that in the printout, and I'll say, oops, I messed up. And there's a lot of incentives for big projects. The state in their enterprise zone created a whole list of things you can qualify if you're like an automotive manufacturer. You know, you can get waivers on your natural gas tax, you can get waivers on your electricity tax, you can get hiring taxes for hiring people, you get all kinds of things if you're a large industrial project. So there really is industrial heavy, but the first couple, wage and sales tax and investment tax credit, are the main ones that everyday people get on smaller projects. So this is our enterprise zone, just like the map over there. And you can see the north industrial area up here is highlighted. The heart of the downtown
The
is.
top button is a laser pointer.
Oh, does this work good? Ooh. Okay, now it's class. We have our Ottawa Industrial Park over here. Heritage Harbor is in it. We have, our enterprise zone goes outside the city limits. These areas over here are not in the city. Some areas down here are not. Our enterprise zone even goes all the way over to Morris and Shanahan. We pick up some industry there because they need help. It's not about just helping ourselves, it's about helping everybody. We have all those, a lot of wind farms down there by Ransom. They're in our enterprise zone. You drive past a nuclear power plant, see our enterprise zone goes to where it's needed, not just to us. So if you're in the footprint, we can help you. You automatically qualify if you have a project that you're doing that's commercial industrial, and often residential too. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to the next one. I don't have to talk a lot about enterprise zones. They're straightforward. You save the sales tax. What is TIF? Well, it's one of two things depending who you are. It's either a 3-letter swear word. That's what the newspaper sometimes thinks. Or it's a 3-letter word that means, oh my gosh, I can afford to open up my business. And we hope that's what it is. So TIF is a real estate tax tool. That's what it's all about. It has to do with real estate tax. It stands for tax increment financing, and it's another thing that has a specific footprint of land that's identified. TIFs are created usually by cities, by towns, and they can be done by counties, but it's very rare. Usually a city creates a TIF district. They have a very formal process to go through to create a TIF district. And it kind of works like this. If you have a property that has an assessment of a certain amount, and then it's in a TIF district, and you build a whole bunch, you renovate it, or you build a new building on it, the tax assessment is going to go from here to here. And now you know that now that you fix it up and you build it, your taxes are going to go way up. Well, in a TIF district, the taxes based on this base assessment will continue to still go to everybody. Everybody will still get, the schools, the county, everybody will still get their taxes from where the base was before your project was built. So we're not taking money away directly from anybody. But the extra assessment, this increment that it goes up, the taxes on this incremental change in your assessment, those taxes go to the city's TIF account. And we can only spend it on certain things that are dictated by state statute. And those things are typically very straightforward. And I think the next slide probably talks about that, so I'll get to that. But it's those incremental taxes that do it. And to do this, you have to either be buying an old building and usually rehabbing it, or you have to be building something new, and there has to be some construction. There has to be eligible expenses. It's all about relocating or reconstructing or renovating or building new. And when you do those things, you have expenses that are big that stop you from being able to do it. And this is to help you. If you have an existing building and you just buy it and don't build anything, and you may qualify, may not. That's trickier. Let's see what the next one says. So we have a bunch of TIF districts in Ottawa. They got on the map incrementally, slowly over time. They include this one here, the North TIF District, that was one of our first. The East TIF District is down by like Ottawa Hospital. Then we came to downtown TIF. And then we created a TIF for the industrial park. And then around the same time, we created the Dayton TIF up here, the Canal TIF, which goes all the way through town, kind of follows the canal. And then
This commercial TIF I was talking about, how that was created and all this area changed in a matter of a couple of years. And the most recent one and biggest one is this Route 71 TIF. One of the most interesting things the city has done in the last couple of years, the city has invested to bring water and sewer up Route 71 and open up the Route 71 interchange with I-80 for new development. And so they've invested a small fortune to get water and sewer up there, believing that that's going to be the future of commercial industrial growth in the city. They've just finished adopting a brand new comprehensive plan that addresses what should be built up there, and we're about to make a retail marketing push to a commercial, retail, industrial push to find developers who will actually start making some things up there. And so that's in a brand new TIF district, so we can help incentivize that and to help pay for these incredible costs we had to extend water and sewer. And if you didn't know, we spent $8 million to get water and sewer up there, and it came out of city pockets. And hopefully we'll get some money back when things start developing. There is no other entity in our county that will say, oh, hey county, would you invest $8 million so that we might be able to develop that and bring things to our town? County won't do that. How about let's go to the school district? Will you invest $8 million to try to bring new investments so you get more property tax? It's us. It's the city. It's the only one. And we do it for TIF districts. And it really helps. One thing I need to tell you so you're not confused, TIF districts and enterprise zone districts can be on the same property. Matter of fact, most of the time they are. The target properties for development are the same usually for TIF districts and enterprise zones. If it's like, you can see why we picked an interchange. It's obvious there's a spot where development might happen, where there's gonna be roads to extend, water to extend, sewer, electric, all that kind of stuff, and there's gonna be money needed, but then people will be interested. You can see that. And so we have both enterprise zone and TIF districts on the same land so that both sets of incentives apply. So we get money into our TIF account. You might think, wow, the city's getting rich. Where do we spend it? Well, in general, right off the top, about a third of this extra we give to the schools. So a third of this extra piece of pie, 1/3 of it right off the top, for almost all the TIF districts, we give to the school districts because we don't want them to be impacted. And so some of them are having, quite frankly, some of these school districts are having their easiest financial times because of this, because we give them a chunk of cash up right at the top. We pay some basic administrative expenses that it takes to run the TIF. We have to hire an attorney and an accountant program, and we have to do all these things we have to do to run it. That doesn't cost that much. We use the money to build the infrastructure. Streets, roads, water, sewer. You know, we've invested into infrastructure in our industrial park, including a rail spur and stuff like that. We use the TIF money to landscape the downtown, to beautify it, to create the bump outs, to put up the decorative street lights, to do the things that make the downtown beautiful. The city has invested TIF dollars to do that. And we use money to give rebates back to businesses. And this is what you're interested in. A chunk of this can go back to you. And so maybe a third of your taxes extra can come back to you. That's pretty standard, roughly, approximate numbers. Without getting into the weeds of all the calculations, which takes forever, maybe a third of your money can come back to you. If you're somebody who does something pretty amazing and you bring in lots and lots of high-paying jobs, the city will do everything we can to give you as much as we possibly can. If you want to put in a gravel parking lot and just park trucks, I don't think we'll give you anything. TIF deals are individually negotiated, and they're negotiated between the city and the project that's coming in. And if you're going to invest a lot of money, create a lot of property tax, and create a lot of jobs, we'll do everything we can to give you everything we can to encourage you to come. Same way if you're an existing building and you want to renovate and you want to help invest in our town, we'll do what we can to try to get you to come to our town. So each TIF agreement is negotiated individually. It starts off from a pretty straightforward place where we say, well, typically the schools get a third, the city gets a third to build infrastructure, and you get a third back. And then it goes up from there. Maybe the city will be willing to throw in their third and give that back to you also, or some part of it. All depends, what they see the benefit of. You have to have eligible expenses to qualify for it. Interestingly enough, if you're renovating an existing building, the price of purchasing the existing building is an eligible expense, so you have plenty of expenses. And typically what we do is we pay you, we rebate back to the business a percentage of your incremental taxes. You know, the schools and everybody still gets their taxes from that base, but that increment that goes up, we give you a portion of that back, a portion of what you pay. We give it back to you typically for 10 years. And so that'll help you with your taxes and it'll get you some money back, typically for a period of 10 years. We know people like to get rebates back for 20 years, but quite frankly, we've learned that people don't make their decision of whether they're gonna locate in your town or not based on a paycheck they might get 12, 13, 14, 15 years from now. It doesn't seem to make a difference. I should say that if you're a commercial and industrial and you are getting TIF or enterprise zone and all these assistance from the city, commercial industrial projects usually should be built with prevailing wages, and they would ask you to do that if you have to hire contractors. TIF is the most confusing of any of these programs because of all the taxes. I put on 1.5 hour seminars on the nuts and bolts of how it works. And we don't have time to get into that today. Do we have any TIF questions before I jump on? Because it can be very confusing. Anything I can answer? What I can say is, if you have any questions, call me. I can describe it in great detail. And if I can't describe it good enough, I know others who can do better than me. Okay, so those are our main two tools. Good enough? Should we go home? So what if you want to do something in the downtown? Our downtown is all in a TIF district. It's all in an enterprise zone. What else you got? Well, we have something called a facade program. The city sets aside a certain dollar amount every budget year to pay people to improve the outside of their building. And again, the facade program has a footprint. And the map of that one's over here. The area surrounded on that map is the facade program. And let me tell you right now, you guys just took a step down. I don't run the facade program. Tammy Coppin does at the City of Ottawa. Tammy Coppin runs the facade program. She knows it forwards and backwards, been in charge of it for probably 15 years. We can rebate back to you money that it costs to fix up the outside of the building. It's gotta be in the footprint that's the outside dark line of that map. It's gotta be in that area. And then what you do is you say, here's what I wanna do. Maybe you wanna tuck point the brick of an old building that needs tuck pointing, that qualifies. Or maybe you need a new sign, or maybe you wanna put up awnings, or maybe you wanna paint it different. You come up with a suggestion, it gets reviewed by the city, because if you wanna take your historic building and paint it pink with purple polka dots, we're probably not gonna give you money to do that. You know, we require you to do something that meets our historic guidelines. But as long as it looks good, we'll go along with you, and then we can pay up to half the cost for you to fix the outside of your building. It includes rehab, painting, lighting, awning, signage, very flexible in what it has to be done, and we can help you improve the outside of your building. The city pays half, but we have some maximums. For the part of the building that faces the front of the road, you know, like for the street frontage, the part that everybody sees in the front, the maximum the city will pay is $14 a square foot. Again, this should all be in your handouts, I hope. Should be in there under the City of Ottawa handout section. For the side, we'll pay up to $7 a square foot. You know, and some buildings have, you have a corner lot. Well, one of them will be considered the front, and one will be considered the side. They can't both be fronts. And then, so the side, we can pay up to $7 a square foot. So if you're taller, you get more. You know, some people say, I'm 3 stories, I got more to do. We'll pay more. And if it's the rear, when eligible, and I don't know when it's eligible, I'm guessing if there's an alley, it's eligible. We'll pay up to $4 a square foot. The maximum the city will do is $40,000 for a facade program. Though on occasion, we've had somebody do a facade program and then like 7 or 8 years later, they need to do some more, and we did some more. So that might be possible. Tammy would know. And our money to pay this comes where do you think it comes from? We take this out of the TIF district. This is where we get the money to do programs like this. So that's pretty much the facade program. We help you fix up the outside of your probably old building. And there's the map. Quite frankly, I wish Tammy was here to describe the map. There are two things shown in this map. First, there is a dark blue outline. Just blue. Purple. It's colorblind type. It's purple. There's this purple, dark purple outline around the map. And what's the legend say? The legend doesn't even say what the dark purple is. But I believe, what's the light color? What's the top one say?
Downtown historic district is the top one, which is the.
So I think the blue is the facade district. And then the dark outline outlines the historic district, which is the next one we're gonna get into. So this is the map, and if there's any questions, you wanna call Tammy, our expert. And so she'll explain, she'll tell you the address, she'll say whether it's in, whether it's out, and whether it qualifies. So let's look at the historic tax credit. In the historic district, we'll do an effort to get a certain area of our downtown certified as a historic tax credit district. Now that we have our commercial historic district, we qualify for federal tax credits. That can be 20% of the cost of a construction project. It's for historic restoration only. They will have some strings attached about what it has to look like, and you gotta submit for approval, and it takes patience and time. But if you're doing a $500,000 renovation, you might be able to get, well, whatever 20% is. That pays pretty good. And so, that can be a huge thing. And your plan must be submitted to Tammy, and then she talks to the historic people, and you work together, and you can pay 20%. The building must contribute to the historic district, and it must be for income producing purposes. So non-for-profits can't apply for that. We can't use historic tax credits for City Hall. It's gotta be a profitable thing that's run for profit. And it's gotta meet the Secretary of Interior standards for renovation. So sometimes that can drive you batty. Sometimes you discover that you gotta keep the outside the way it is, but you can gut the inside and do whatever you want. Sometimes there's a historic thing on the inside, and that can slow you down, but it can be worth chasing after if you have some time. So, let's talk about some of these things, and we'll see. Parts of this slide aren't right, but I'll tell you what they are. So, I can use the. Okay, so enterprise zone. The basic bottom line of sales tax, you save 6.25%. But if the sales tax where you buy at 7%, 8%, we're buying Chicago at 9%, you save all the taxes, and so your sales tax is saved. You can maybe get, whatever doesn't go to the schools, half whatever's left of your real estate taxes back from the TIF for 10 years. Facade program used to be $250 per frontage foot. This is an old slide. They changed it to $14 a square foot because buildings are taller and taller ones get more, so that number's gone. It's now $14 per frontage foot, or you saw the other. You can get historic district tax credits up to 20% of the cost of renovation. We also have a sidewalk program that if your sidewalk's busted or doesn't meet handicap accessibility or things like that, we can pay, I think, up to so much a square foot. It's almost 50% of the cost of replacing sidewalks in front of your building. And I'll give you another caveat about that. Often the sidewalks in front of your building are owned by the city, and you will say, why should I contribute to fixing my sidewalk? I don't own it. And the answer usually is, we have sidewalks failing all over the city. We can't afford to fix them all. We have to prioritize which ones we do first. And when people come to us and say, I'm willing to pay part of it, they go to the top of the list. It's just the way it is. We'll help you, and probably you need it more than we do. But that's why there's a sidewalk program and helps pay for those things. And if you need to become handicap accessible, fixing the sidewalks is a big part of it. We can help you with that. And there are also a whole bunch of financing programs that I can't get into. We work with several different state departments, including the Treasurer's Office and DCEO and I can't even remember them all. We have some local things like Herb does. There's many finance programs, low interest loans, guaranteed loans, things like that, that I can put you in touch with, and we can help you find financing. So, if there's trouble having quite enough money to do what you have to do, we can help you find financing too. Is there more? Okay, how are you supposed to remember all this? Well, you're not. You can't remember that. Your answer is you call Dave and he tells you what you can do. And the other thing is, we have these websites. And we would feel free to look on these websites. If we had time, I was gonna ask him to actually queue them up, but I've already talked too long, haven't I? When am I supposed to be done?
Negative 5 minutes.
Okay, okay.
But we have the NASCAR.
Well, we have the NASCAR break, so I can cruise through the NASCAR break. At cityofottawa.org, there's a couple spots you can click on that website. There'll be a tab that says departments. If you hover over that, you can go down to economic development, and click that one. Or you can go down to planning and zoning, if you wanna see zoning maps and stuff. And so cityofottawa.org, when it comes up, find the tab that says departments, and it's gonna be planning, or it's gonna be economic development, and that'll give you all kinds of information. The other website you can go to see all this is ottawailnow.com. And I think these are probably in your materials also that I gave you. Huge amount of information there. All these incentive programs are there to discuss some of the finance programs. We have pictures of development in the past and things like that. And that's what I have. There's like 40 slides after this showing you before and after questions. Before and what downtown looked like before, what it looked like after. I've got 40 slides I could show you, but you've seen the change. You know what it's like. Any questions? We want you here. Call me, we'll try to find a way. Thanks.
Thank you, Dave. I would be more than happy to give anybody one of Dave's cards. But Dave has been a great partner to work with. If you want to know anything about economic development, he has been fundamental when we have been trying to work on grants for COVID, trying to keep our businesses going. He is a tremendous resource, and Dave and I speak the same language. We're both engineers, so sometimes we kind of talk in a certain kind of technical. You go from point A to B to C to D, so you remember that we're engineers. With that, we're going to turn in the 180-degree opposite, and I get to introduce my next speaker who does the other side. You always hear the left brain, right brain. The other side may be public art. So I want to welcome our next speaker, and I will turn off the projector, but our next speaker is Julia Messina,